Chapter 34, Workers, Labor, and a Triangle. American labor laws lagged far behind those of almost every other industrial nation. Working conditions were often unsafe, factory pay was rarely fair, and workers had few, if any, benefits. In 1900, only one American worker in 12 belonged to a union. Unions were feared by workers as well as managers because many early labor leaders seemed too radical for most Americans. Then, near the turn of the century, a labor leader appeared who was a conservative thinker. No one could accuse Samuel Gompers of being radical. He used American business methods to organize and negotiate for labor. Sam Gompers came to this country from England when he was 13. His family was actually Dutch. They were Dutch Jews, but they moved to London where Sam's father tried to make a living as a cigar maker. He didn't have an easy time of it, especially as his family kept growing. Sam was a bright boy and did well in school. After classes, he went to Hebrew school and studied the Talmud. The Talmud is a collection of ancient writings on Jewish laws and traditions, which he said develops the more subtle quality of the minds. The students learn to deal with abstract problems, to make careful discriminations, and to follow a line of reasoning from premise to conclusion. He liked school and wanted to go on, but the family was desperately poor. Sam had to go to work. At age 10, he was apprenticed to a shoemaker, but he decided he'd rather be a cigar maker, so he helped his father make cigars. Even that wasn't enough. The Gompers were hungry, and when the Cigar Makers Society, a union, came to the rescue. They had an emigration fund that helped members go to America. A civil war was being fought in America, but that didn't stop the Gompers family. They boarded a ship and headed to the New World. The Gompers lived in a New York City tenement. Tenements were apartment houses for the poor. Many were used as factories. Sometimes they were called sweatshops because they were usually hot and airless, and the workers were sweated, forced to work long hours in cramped, dirty rooms with no provisions for safety, rest, comfort, or refreshment. Sam's family lived across from a slaughterhouse and a brewery. A penetrating, sickening odor filled the neighborhood, as Sam later recalled. His father rolled cigars at home. Sam joined a debating club and began taking courses at New York City's Cooper Union, where he studied history, music, mechanics, economics, electric power, geography, astronomy, speech-making, and more. When he was 16, he got a job in a cigar factory. While the cigar makers rolled the tobacco, they liked to have someone read to them. The reader had to be smart. The cigar makers wanted to educate themselves. They kept up with the latest news. They had lively discussions, and they listened to good literature too. Sometimes Sam Gompers did the reading. After he got married and started his own family, he began to take an interest in the Cigar Makers Union. Gompers was a no-nonsense person who got results. His powerful voice and his good sense soon helped him become president of the Cigar Makers Union. It was a craft union, which means that all its members did the same kind of work. In 1886, he persuaded other craft unions to band together with the cigar makers and form the American Federation of Labor. Gompers was named president, and for the next 38 years he worked for the AFL. He made it a major force in the American industrial world. Sam Gompers was a practical man. He wanted big changes, but unlike the anarchists and socialists, he did not call for society to be organized in new ways, which scared most Americans. Gompers stuck to the labor issues such as working hours, wages, and job safety. He used strikes to get 8-hour working days, 5-day work weeks, safety reforms in mines, and the rights of workers to band together to negotiate, called collective bargaining. By 1901, the AFL had more than 1 million members. Gompers stayed out of politics. He knew that it would divide the workers. He only had one goal: to improve working conditions in the United States. He wanted American workers to have the best possible wages and benefits. If workers earned good pay, he believed they would make everyone prosperous. Besides, he thought a fair labor policy led to a just society. Show me the country in which there are no strikes, and I will show you that country in which there is no liberty, said Samuel Gompers. Do you agree with that statement? Why or why not? In earlier days, businesses were small. Usually owner and employee worked together. But in the industrial age, factories grew big and impersonal. Employers had almost unlimited power. They could lock employees in or out of the workplace. Their wealth often gave them the means to destroy unions by hiring armed guards or buying unfavorable and often unfair publicity. The courts almost always favored the employers. That changed when the unions acquired power and respectability. Then American workers began to reap the benefits of their own productivity. It might not have happened without leaders like Samuel Gompers. When the Irish Land League issued orders forbidding the Irish from supplying British land against Captain Charles' boycott with provisions, it added a new word to the English language. That word came to America and became a tactic used by American labor. You know what that word is, don't you? The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire. Workers were sometimes locked inside the buildings where they worked because employers didn't trust them. If the doors were open, some might stop working and go outside to get fresh air. So some doors were locked the day in 1911 when the Triangle Shirtwaist Company caught fire. Many women workers who were sewing dresses were trapped on a high floor. Some leapt out of the window and fell to their death. Some died in the flames. 146 young women perished on that day. You can read this section in the green on your own.